sane and okay. So we will be talking about all these things during the presentation, for some briefly, some more extensive. Feel free to, again, ask questions. I think I'll be seeing them in the Zoom chat. And Meg, please help me when the question appears, because now when I share my screen, I don't see them immediately.
Yes, sure. So there is a question and answers tab. So anybody can type a question there. They can also type it on the chat tab. So I'll let you know when there's a question there.
Okay, great. So a lot of questions appear for the reason that people don't really understand what decentralization means in real life. It's kind of like easy to believe that like Bitcoin is completely new reality, and it's so complicated. Only like PhDs understand what's going on, and you just need to invest and shut your mouth, and that's it. But we have a lot of examples of decentralization in the world, and they kind of sometimes they are very kind of implicit. You don't really perceive them as decentralization, but sometimes they are explicit. So implicit decentralization to a certain extent would be the like split of the executive power, legislative power, and the like law, like the law, passing law power. And it means that nobody in the government can really like establish tyranny, because other branches of the power will balance it. So obviously there are countries where you have the only one person decides for everybody, but in most countries, no. And we got used to it, so for us it's perfectly normal. And the other example would be that you never had an accountant and the auditor be the same person in the company. Like it's clearly, you will, at some point there will be fraud. So you need to have this decentralized. Even more subtle example of decentralization, it would be like any card game, where the rules of the game, let's say poker, are created by some person. You never know who is the person. Then the cards are printed by different company, maybe multiple companies, and then each individual game is conducted like separately. So when I'm asked, can the, like let's take Bitcoin for now, can the creator of Bitcoin print more money? Because people used to that if there is money, then somebody can print more. Or can they influence the rule of the game? Obviously, again, got used to the banks can change fees and commissions and yeah, and some rules and so on. If we take the game, obviously the answer is no. The creator of poker game cannot change the rules while we are playing. The creator of the game cannot add cards, right, to the game while we are playing. And obviously they cannot have an advantage. The company that printed cards doesn't have any advantage in a game if the representative is playing on the table. So it's kind of decentralized, the rules creation, the instruments creation, and the game itself, the process. Plus, each step in the game is a transaction effectively. And how it's kind of approved, everybody is looking who sits on the table, they kind of implicitly approve the transaction silently, right? So if somebody is wrong, something is wrong, so like we see like three kings appear or whatever, some hand, others will just shout and say you don't behave according to the rules. So that's definitely a problem, and that person will be excluded from the game. So in a decentralized system but digital, this should happen in the same way, with the difference that it should be like online. So you can't really see the transaction. You need to have certain ways, which in our case are cryptographic tools, to like distribute the transactions and vote for them. But the process is very much the same. So there are already a lot of decentralized systems, and when you have such questions as how come that the Bitcoin cannot be added to existence via its creator, and rules changed and stolen and whatever, this is the answer. So just by an example. This is the key, I would say this is the key concept of decentralized systems, the separation of the creator, the rules, the tools, and the process. And obviously there are other processes like data transmission is also decentralized, so it doesn't need to be any like unique link between everybody. And data audit is also should be decentralized, so everybody should be able to perform an audit. And data storage should be decentralized. Like you see all of this in Bitcoin. So yeah. And in an ideal case, the rule update of the rules should also be decentralized. So like we see in Bitcoin, it kind of happens naturally, like not without struggles, but still. In Ethereum, we had, for example, cases where the like creator said we need to change, we need to do the like refund to people, and yeah, this is the example of bad behavior, I would say. So there are a lot of processes that, yeah, transaction validation and calculations and so on. Then when we are thinking about what could we do with the decentralized system, there are a lot of things. I also, why this slide is like the second one, why I think it's so important, because many people, very smart people, still think that the cryptocurrency is the only application of these technologies, and other applications should be even like banned, and the people should not work on them because they kind of help the government. Really, you can find such opinions. I believe that I'm technology neutral, so it's kind of like nuclear energy. It could be obviously used to create a bomb, but it also could be used to create a nuclear power station. And like in Abu Dhabi, there is one now, very recently. So it is inevitably that technology will be used for different purposes. So, but there's a range of things. For example, you can create a digital ownership system. It's basically for it could be for one company to account the warehouse receipts, for example, or do accounting of money or accounting of shares and so on and so forth. Then you can have adding a few more participants. You can build a reconciliation system, like between a few banks if you want to make a payment system. Then like under tokenization platform, I kind of mean the ecosystem where there are multiple like value creators, those who bring certain, like many warehouses that bring their receipts on, or many companies that want to do crowd investing. So something where there's bigger community. Voting platform should involve technically all the citizens in the country. So kind of explains what it means. Then cryptocurrency involves like everybody in the world technically. And something that is beyond, marked by the question mark, is a new type of cryptocurrency that will appear, and there are some attempts already. Fully anonymous, transactions are not traceable, and yeah, etc., etc. So Bitcoin is not there yet, but there are some other currencies that there are a little bit. So you can have many applications, like mesh networks are also in that scale. You can have many applications, but for them you still need more or less the same tools. It's like if you're building a house, if it's a one-story house, you need bricks. If it's 5-story house, you also need bricks. If it's 100-story house, you also need bricks to make the walls. But bricks will play another role, but still they'll be bricks. And you will need glass, you will need concrete, and so on and so forth. So what we do, particularly in Distributed Lab, we are studying with all these tools. In our case, these are digital signatures, hash functions, zero knowledge proofs, homomorphic encryption, and many other things. And we apply them to the real life. So that when customer comes and says, I want to solve this or that problem, and usually the problem is expressed in business terms. I want to combine anonymity and KYC. So like I want to have private transactions in a system where only registered users can act. It's kind of contradictory, but it can be implemented. And or I want to process data on a server by a third-party algorithm, and the third-party algorithm is very like precious one. We should not give it as open source to the company that has the data. And the data is very precious one. We should not give the data to the company that made the algorithm. And how can we implement that? And you have for that, again, zero knowledge proofs and homomorphic encryption, which allow you to do so. So there are very fancy, I would say, techniques and problems that are not solved yet, or even if they are solved in a scientific way, they're not solved in a practical business way. So there are no tools. So that's what we do. We develop them and we kind of try to standardize certain like layers. So we start from blockchain quickly. This is our definition, which says blockchain is not even a technology, it's a method, because you can implement blockchain in many ways. The same way as you can implement the jet engine principle. The jet engine could work in a boat with water, in a plane with air. They could build an ionic jet engine for a microscopic world. You can have, the duck, in the bathroom is also uses the, principle of jet engine. And yeah, toy. So we say it's a method to do what? To store and synchronize data between participants who do not trust each other. And as soon as you have multiple parties, multiple companies, independent companies that wouldn't trust each other 100%, maybe to a certain extent, but not 100%. Otherwise, it would be the same company. So, and blockchain is needed to, again, to kind of do reconciliation of data. You can name it different ways. You can say it's to make single source of truth, or it's to like provide real-time audit, or to do, yeah, you name it. So there are many ways to express what it does. From a technical perspective, it just, you cannot compare it directly to database because it's a little bit more than database. It uses database. You can use any database. But what it does, it creates a logical structure on top of the database, plus it connects different instances. So it's data, like to a certain extent, again, a method, a data structure, and yeah. And very often people say, oh, what the tasks that you are explaining could be solved with a normal database, Azure or MySQL or whatever. And I say, yes, it could be, but as soon as you start implementing all the security techniques that you need, like digital signatures and consensus, and you will link transactions securely, you will eventually build your own version of the blockchain. So for some cases, it may make sense, for some doesn't. So yeah, it's like you can build a house without using nails. There are such houses. But what's the purpose of that if you can build it with nails, but much more faster and bigger houses? Yeah. So that's usually the. Do we have any questions at this point?
I think there is a question which is about, is it advisable to invest in cryptocurrencies, which I don't know if you want to answer now or maybe at a later point.
Okay, I will come to this a little bit later.
Okay.
1 second. Okay, so there are a lot of myths about blockchain in general. The blockchain is slow or requires a lot of servers or energy, that's immutable, that's always correct, it's vulnerable to 51% attack, that you need miners, that yeah, it's no better than centralized database, that quantum computers will kill it, and that you always need a coin or ICO. So every project that has blockchain should have its own currency, etc. These are all myths, even though uh, they might be true for a particular blockchain system. So for example, if you use blockchain to build Bitcoin, like in Bitcoin, you need miners. And it's vulnerable for 51% attack. And it requires a lot of energy, but only for Bitcoin case. In general, it's not true. And it will be kind of more or less immutable for the Bitcoin case if you have a lot of like participants maintaining the states of the database, dozens of thousands. But as a method, it doesn't have these properties. It's about how you assemble these components to make it happen. So if you use a blockchain for the enterprise use case, it will be more or less fast. You don't need any energy. You don't need any miners, technically. You're not vulnerable to this attack. And you don't need any coin. It's better than centralized database, etc., etc. So, and regarding quantum computers, quantum computing computers will attack not the blockchain itself, but the underlying cryptographic algorithms. But then it will be true for every company in the world that uses cryptographic algorithms now. Every bank uses it, Facebook uses it, Zoom uses it. So what will happen is just the people already have new cryptographic algorithms, post-quantum. So the blockchain projects will just take that and integrate. So it's not something that is kind of plastic is bad, uh, for your health. Again, could be many types of plastic. Some of them maybe not. So it's it's a method. It doesn't have these vulnerabilities or advantages by default. Then why do we need blockchain? I will be quick here. So first of all, you need for the digital world, you need to have a tool to verify the data that you are seeing on your screen is correct. And currently, you just trust that everything digital, but it's very easy to hack. It's very easy to substitute, and you don't have any proof. If you see today that your balance on internet bank is like 1,000 dirhams, and tomorrow it will be 900, and you didn't spend anything, and if you call to the bank and say, "Oh, yesterday I saw 1,000 dirhams," they will not take it at face value. So you don't have, even if you make a screenshot, it's easy to fake. So yeah, there is no way to prove. So the only way to prove is to use digital signatures. It's like a paper receipts that have the signature of the banker. The same type of technology you need to have in a digital form. It's already there, but it's not used. So blockchain assumes you are using all of that. And this is it's crucial for the digital world to implement these mechanisms. Otherwise, the digital systems cannot scale. They will also always rely on the phone call, the manager of the bank, and ability to recognize the voice of the manager or client and trust that you are calling the right number and not calling the hacker itself. Again, you cannot solve it using just normal techniques. So blockchain is there to help that. And as I said, it helps to build system that kind of maintains single source of truth and technically eliminates the need of settlement, at least for financial systems. Because multiple ledgers can synchronize like per transaction. So you don't need to have this cumbersome process at the end of the day or so. So for the comparison, blockchain versus centralized database, it provides the trustless real-time audit. It provides the integrity control, robustness, non-repudiation, and distributed decision-making. So it's more than database. It's like a set of tools on top of the database. So I will share the presentation, so you don't need to like read this now. There are a few business problems that blockchain can solve. I will go over them quickly, otherwise we don't have time for questions. Trustless registries of ownership. It could be registries of land, registries of certificates of patents, of money, of licenses, anything. So blockchain will be the foundation of these registries eventually. We are building some. Okay, we have some robots talking. Decision-making trustless, including voting on the state level, or including decision-making about the company future, such as board directors doing regular gatherings. If it's online, eventually it will be blockchain plus digital identity doing that. Audit, very important task. Also, currently audit is performed usually once per year or in a certain designated time, and it should be like per transaction audit. And I guess that like huge audit companies will even change their model and will be like a validators for all transactions that are going on. So the company doesn't have a chance to cook their books in the past. Timestamping also like very important task. So you will have tools to prove that something indeed happened in the past, and integrity protection. Major like use cases, just again a quick overview. Supply chains will be using blockchain, all kinds of public registries, all kinds of reconciliation system, voting and trading systems will eventually use blockchain. Sometimes I'm asked, I have a system like ERP. How can I use blockchain? Very often answer is just don't do this at this moment of time, because if everything works for you, changing it will be hard. Or there could be the, I would say, just use it as a timestamping and integrity control mechanism. So like hash all the transactions in your ERP system, in the blockchain, and basically to prevent changes in the past, which could be done by hackers or insiders. But usually it makes sense to use blockchain when you're designing and building a new system, a new platform, a new registry or something. Then you will kind of embed blockchain as a fabric into your system from day one. It's kind of the same if you take a house that's built from bricks, like this, walls are made from bricks, and you say, how can I use steel and concrete? Usually, again, you can put some stuff inside, but it won't be super efficient. It's better to demolish the old house and build a new one, and it could be much higher than the previous one. So even though we have a lot of cases and a lot of business problems that blockchain can solve, it doesn't mean you need to rush out and like try to integrate blockchain in every system that is already working. And actually, that was one of the reasons why many blockchain projects failed. They tried to solve problem that wasn't much, immediate. So it wasn't perceived as an important problem. Everything worked fine, and that's it. But yeah, indeed, when you develop a new one, then you definitely should think about that and study. One example would be the auction, decentralized auction. So I'm using it because, first of all, we had such project, and for cars, and second, is it vividly shows the value. So there are many platforms that sell cars, for example, and usually one car is listed on one platform. It's kind of hard to put the car on many platforms and to conduct. It's impossible to conduct an auction on many platforms at the same time because it's a manual job. What we did, we connected the multiple auction platforms using blockchain. So every car that was listed on one platform was also listed on all other ones. And all the bids that were coming for the same car, we kind of accumulated and shared instantly between multiple platforms. In reality, you have a decentralized real-time auction. And this is it's needed to increase liquidity and reduce amount of hassle to share all this data. So that's how you can have a better market, data available, and market efficiency is increased. And this project is working currently. Now we come to the cryptocurrency, and I will answer the question whether you should invest in something. So first of all, some myth, and we'll come to short definition as well. So the myth is that many people know CoinMarketCap. It's like the Bloomberg for capitalization of cryptocurrencies, and people believe it lists only the cryptocurrency. In reality, it's not. There are very few cryptocurrencies, real ones, like Bitcoin, Monero, I don't know, a few others. And the rest could be digital assets, could be digital stocks, could be some nonsense, could be some derivatives or ownership rights, but have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, with real one, except that they are using blockchain somehow. And the confusion is also that the coin token means cryptocurrency. I would not mix the things. I would even not use the word token because it's too technical and doesn't, show anything. So some people say that tokens is the new asset class. It's complete bullshit. It's not. It just the token always represents something, and that something could be share, or could be a bond, or could be cryptocurrency, or could be a normal currency. And you cannot bundle them together. That's why it doesn't make sense to list them together. The one that we already talked about, that the creator of cryptocurrencies can print money, change the rules, and then crypto will replace intermediaries. It's kind of partially true, because it will replace intermediaries that, if they're doing very dumb services currently, just passing data here and there. If it's not, if it's doing like insurance or storage or many other functions, it won't replace them. Just because technology itself doesn't have the business purpose. Some people say that crypto is faster than fiat because they saw that you can trade Bitcoin 24/7, and fiat no. Somebody says, oh, it's much cheaper to have Bitcoin. Look at how many banks you need, or vice versa. They say, look at cryptocurrency is much more expensive. So it's all like biased opinions, and you always need to take a particular use case, a particular problem, and compare particular things, and not the whole class, because then it's like compare the forest and the green. So that's exactly what's happening. And some people say that cryptocurrency price is always growing because it's limited in existence and governed by mathematics. And believe me, many people made a lot of money because they convinced others to believe in such myth. Even if it's true that it's limited and only mathematics governs it and blah, 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 the price, it's a social aspect. It's not embedded that the price is growing. So it always follows the demand and supply. So yeah, it's I can go over all of these questions, but it will take some time. You'll be able to ask me questions by email or maybe on later webinars. So for now, just quick things. And one more thing that's funny, and currently for the mass market, so-called mass market, you have to install like wallets that you get from Apple, Google, Microsoft, and if they delete the wallets from their app stores, then you can lose all your access, and in some cases you will lose all your possessions, because that they are the gateways how you access to the decentralized world. So it's the situation is much more tricky than it sounds. The one thing that's very important that like crypto has taught us, and like Bitcoin and crypto, I'm using these terms interchangeably, that I understand fully decentralized systems that have the censorship resistant like control function, and privacy is one of the consequences. So systems that don't have decentralized like issuance and processing and audit, they're not cryptocurrencies. So Ripple is not a cryptocurrency, for example. And yeah. So what Bitcoin has taught us that you can have a secure financial system that doesn't have a company behind it, that employs zero security administrators, that has no firewalls, no permission management, no physical security, and it's much more safer than a traditional banking system. And how come? And the answer is because all these like functions are performed using cryptography and like consensus, and not with people. So the security is embedded into the architecture. And this is what traditional financial systems can borrow from Bitcoin. All these principles of securing accounts, securing keys and users, etc., can be borrowed by a traditional sector, and infrastructure will become much cheaper. That's again what we do. We create systems that are long-term much cheaper to run and change, maintain than traditional ones that are relying just on, administrators and firewalls, etc. So indeed, you can say, oh, but there are many fraud cases with Bitcoin. Many exchanges were hacked, and it's true, but the security model is changed. It's shifted from the securing the ledger itself to securing the private key, the wallet of the user. And now every user is responsible for their own keys. The same way you're responsible for the PIN number of the credit card. If you give it to somebody and people take cash from the ATM, you lost your money because it's you that you have to do that. You have to keep it secret. And basically, you can steal Bitcoins if you know the key from the account. And when you deposit money to a crypto exchange, technically you are giving your Bitcoins to somebody else. And if they are attacked and their Bitcoins are stolen, you lost money. But you cannot go to some place and steal all the Bitcoins. Like, you obviously, all of us probably saw movies about hackers that go to the bank, connect to a very important server, and then transfer all the money to their accounts. It cannot happen like that in Bitcoin. You need to steal one by one. So there is no server. Yeah. So again, these techniques can be applied to traditional financial industry for their benefit. This one is a little bit more tricky. It's like it's a kind of result of that, and a practical result that until like this moment, companies use the concept of security perimeter. You probably saw organizations that prohibit entering with the flash drives, that you cannot log into internet, go to internet, because it's like very secure organization. And now many organizations work online, and obviously you cannot prevent people using their own devices. So you need to use another ways of securing the data information in general. So this is what needs to be done. The architecture and design of all systems, all IT systems, will need to be kind of redone, because they do not really kind of fit the new reality. Okay, what about questions? Somehow I don't. Meg, I cannot see the questions until I exit the screen sharing.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions. There is one in which they want to know what is Mr. Arjun wants to know what is ICO, the initial coin offering, right? Yeah, he wants to know about ICO. There's one on blockchain as well. How does one start developing or making a blockchain platform?
Okay, regarding blockchain platform, there are a lot of components that like frameworks or libraries that you can use, and we also developed one. We use it ourselves to build like digital banks, payment systems, loyalty systems, marketplaces, registries. So there are a lot of tools. You need to like get acquainted with these tools before you start developing something. Or you hire a team that understands the business tasks, the technical tasks, and can deliver. Regarding the ICO, ICO stands for initial coin offering. It kind of copies the Bitcoin approach. It says, oh, we are creating a new financial instrument or some instrument, some tool, and it's limited in existence, and it's kind of used as a payment method within the network, and it's also used to kind of invest in that network. Like Ethereum is a good example. And the users who use services of this platform have to pay fees in that coin, that payment method. So you could apply it to virtually anything. Even to like coffee machine can have a coin. The main question is, does it make sense? In most cases, no. And those who follow ICO hype in 2017-18 saw that many of them raised dozens of millions of dollars and then crashed to zero, because they issued tokens, the coins, for the network of car washes, for for farm, for business, for exchange, for anything. And it has nothing to do with cryptocurrency, nothing to do with like original concept of decentralized economy. It just says, I want to issue that amount of tokens, and in the future, you may use it for this and that. I have to devote like probably another like lecture about ICO and why the utility token is a bad concept and effectively creates the Ponzi scheme, and how it all happened and what is the mechanics behind it. But yeah, I need much more time for that. I will show one example today with example of a game, how to make your system digital, which makes sense. So we can actually, in a few slides, we will go there. how much? We have approximately 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We have one more question. Maybe you want to address that now. Uh,
Mhm.
Someone who's planning on entering the investment banking field, do you think cryptocurrency will grow in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, this is controversial question because yes, I believe that long term Bitcoin will grow, but only because it solves the problem for the gray market, the gray economy. The international payments are now hard. They are subject to KYC, IML, and obviously there are many people that want to transfer money without that. And Bitcoin captured that value, and now it's being quickly integrated in such business processes. But obviously, if your investment fund investing in something that is not fully legal would be hard. I mean, there will be certainly some workarounds, and maybe in 50 years, Bitcoin will be perfectly legal, and people will kind of believe that privacy is a natural right of a person, but that's definitely not today. So it depends on your strategy. Like, I don't really know. It might happen that uh, in some countries, people use Bitcoin, then realize that they've bought Bitcoins that went through a mixer that preserved privacy, and they could be kind of involved in a, drug trafficking. And then obviously did Bitcoins become like bad? And then what to do with that? So it's a very tricky decision. Regarding other crypto scheme, the answer is also controversial because yes, the digital space will grow faster than a traditional one. And everything that moves quicker will also move faster. But in order for it to really grow, you needed to comply with the regulations. And many things grow because they do not comply and they let people invest as they wish. So, kind of as an individual, maybe you can participate in that. As a fund, it's tricky because it's subject to pump and dump and some scams and, you know, yeah, things that you don't want to know about. This is so investing, you need to really be careful with what you are investing. Definitely not in native tokens, definitely not in some, derivatives that are built using native tokens as collateral. Yeah, so answer is again, you need to dig deeper. So I have this slide now that kind of there are a lot of myths about tokens and tokenization, that all tokens are again the same as a new asset class, and that they cannot be stolen, that because they're decentralized. And yeah, in some cases, issuing tokens, so to say, doesn't contradict to any law. So for example, if you had the ticketing platform, and now you want to make all your tickets digital so they can be really traded, and even if they are issued on Ethereum or whatever system, it doesn't mean you have to comply because it's still a ticket to event. It's not a financial instrument or so. I mean, it depends obviously on how you use it. If you start doing the derivatives and trading, that may become a financial instrument. But generally, no. The token represents the asset that is used, whether it's ticket or loyalty point or maybe something else. So in some countries, they have laws that say that regardless of the medium of exchange, so regardless of the infrastructure, you can use any way to record your assets if there is a public oferta that everybody is happy with. And then there are cases where people had court filings regarding assets that are issued on Ethereum. It's not about blockchain. It's about which infrastructure do we use for the accounting. And yeah, people should have freedom in that. Let me, that would be kind of, let me switch to this. One example of what digitization, tokenization means, and I will try to answer questions why it's sometimes better, which new features it provides, why it could be beneficial to invest in such projects. But again, you need to really dig deep into them. So everybody, I guess everybody played games. And usually you had the creator of the game who runs it, who created the algorithm, designs and runs the servers, and just people connect to a game and do what they want. And you can make game in a decentralized form. So everybody will run its own like small server. If you played like Counter-Strike, you know that you can launch your own server, others will connect. So technically you can make a game run on many servers and just synchronize. And in that case, every player will effectively hold the ledger of all other players and all other assets in the game, including gold, including game objects, and so on and so forth. And the creator of the game is also a participant of the game, has its own like account, so to say. And there are already many games that have external exchange where you can trade the internal gold to dollars, or game objects to dollars, like Warcraft. Yeah, many, many games. The $1 trillion economy already. So then the creator of the game can have the rule that says that instead of paying for the game directly, subscription or so, you have to pay small fee from each transaction that you do, whether you trade something or whatever. And this small transaction will be accumulated on the account of the creator. It's marked by red. It's kind of account of the creator. Everybody knows about it. This account belongs to a creator. And all the revenue from these fees will be accumulated there. And what happens next is that technically the creator can do, so to say, a smart contract, issue another type of an asset, a blue coin on the top. The blue coin represents kind of like a share in the game. And all the income that is accumulated on this tax fee account will be distributed to the token stockholders. So what they do is this, like game gold will be accumulated from transaction fees and redistributed to the stake token holders. And then what they do, they go to exchange it to dollars, right? So it's like a closed economy. But since people want to buy game objects, it has dollar value. So basically what happens, you have three types of tokens, if we speak in blockchain terminology, three types of tokens. First, the currency token, it's the gold token here. It should be stable as possible. If it fluctuates, it's very like inconvenient to play the game because you never know what you can buy tomorrow. The second type of the token is the game object. It's a commodity. The shield, the sword, the ring, or whatever. It's used to do certain actions. And the third type of a token is this stock, a security token, this blue one. It is used to accumulate dividends. So the game is exactly like a small state. It has its own economy. It has the tax system, and the tax system is redistributed to owners of the game. It's all done. It's all could be done via smart contract. So the game creator cannot manipulate how much money who gets, cannot take money for himself. So it's perfectly fair distribution of wealth. And basically investors can know that, knowing that they can invest in the game, knowing that nobody can take their money for some reason, some bad accountant. Everything is an algorithm. And these games already start to appear. And as you may notice, you don't need to have a legal entity to run the game. It's just an algorithm. If people like it, they will run their own servers and connect to the network. The network is established by the people itself, and that's it. So you don't even need to have servers. And this is the real example of the digital economy. And there will be many like that. This economy will grow really fast because it doesn't require any physical resources. And the virtual reality will facilitate this spread. And COVID is an amazing thing that happened for this type of things, because people will stay home, play games, and make their wealth in the virtual world and trade that. So this what is real tokenization. The example of a bad tokenization is if when you combine the gold token with the stock token, and then you do all the transactions you pay with a stock, then it's bad. I mean, you can build Ponzi scheme for that. If you separate that, gold token is a stable one, the stock token is obviously volatile, yeah, that's perfectly fine. And obviously, it's an interest of any stock token holder to increase the economy, so to say, increase the amount of people that play the game and the frequency of their like internal actions. That GDP will grow, amount of taxes will also grow. So this is the example of how it can work. I would say invest in such projects if you believe they are competitive enough, and if you believe they are catchy and people have traction, it would be very much lucrative. If somebody just issued token and their internal economy doesn't use this token except for paying commissions, it's bullshit. Forget about that. So that's what you can do. There are a lot of use cases for such tokenization, such as loyalty, crowdfunding, real estate, precious metal tokenization. They use certain concepts. It will take quite a lot of time, and I'm happy to do other webinars to explain how that works. So to have more dedicated questions. I understand that now we may have questions that somebody says they're interesting questions, others for them it's kind of clear already. So yeah. Would be.
There is one more question, Dr. which says Mr. Ajin wants to know how can the decentralized training be done in the current situation? And actually, I have a question as well, which is, what is the future like? Do we think blockchain technology as a technology, what kind of impact it will have in the future for businesses?
What I would say, decentralized trading is already a reality on the crypto market. It's all still shady. It's hard. You have to deal with private keys. You can lose your money because if you do some things incorrectly. Smart contracts sometimes are vulnerable. Again, it's an implementation of a particular system could be vulnerable. So it's all Wild West still. If you don't understand exactly how it works, it's very much likely that you'll lose all your money eventually. But it's coming. It's like computers in 1970s. Some people have them, but they're too complicated for the normal person. There is no internet. You need to use these diskettes. They are failing, and yeah. So it's still hard, but enormous value in the future. And your question is, so decentralized trading is very interesting. It will create a global bazaar of everything, global barter of everything. The blockchain, the best way to think about the future of blockchain is like to think about the future existence of radio waves. You do not see radio waves. You do not talk about them. There are very few conferences on radio waves. And there are no politicians in there saying we have to transform our country to make it radio wave friendly or to use radio waves in every business. And when you buy a smartphone, now when youngsters buy a smartphone, they don't even know what the radio waves exist, but they are everywhere. Every device has radio waves. Every in the form of Bluetooth, infrared, in form of this frequency, that frequency. And there is enormous amount of hardware dedicated to it and research. But it's kind of hidden. People don't really talk about that. They talk about applications. The same way blockchain and cryptography will be used. There won't be conferences on blockchain for the wide crowd and about cryptography, but it will be used everywhere. So we're just we're on the very, very early stage. So investing now, yeah, Bitcoin, as I said, it will grow, I think, because there is always shady economy, dark market, and it's not picked up Bitcoin yet fully. So it will grow, but that's kind of, you need to decide whether you want to invest in a like gray economy or not. And regarding the traditional business, there'll be many, many solution providers. There'll be many technology companies, consulting firms, product companies. So we are one of them. Investing in such companies will benefit, obviously, because it's very early days. But yeah, you have to assess the risks. That market is not, it's always like volatile, and we're operating for 6 years. And in some years, blockchain was a very hot word. If you have blockchain word assigned next to a startup, your valuation will be 5 times bigger than the same startup without the word blockchain. In 2019, for example, it was a toxic word in many countries because there was still like ICO hangover. People didn't want to do anything with blockchain. They thought it's fraud and just banks didn't open accounts. So now it's slowly picking up. So now blockchain means that you can have like resilient and auditable system, and that makes sense. But in 2014, blockchain meant Bitcoin. 2015 also Bitcoin. Then like again the silence, then ICO. Now it's like DeFi plus. So it's a perception. I think the industry will evolve over next like 10 years with many great products and a huge market eventually. So it makes sense to invest into your understanding of the industry. So I showed we have the book, and there are we published 5 books. They're all available on Amazon. You can find them. Some of them are fully technical, and most of them are technical, yeah. We have shorter pieces dedicated to business people. So it's very interesting times for us.
Okay, I think our time is up, but yeah, we just see if anyone has any more questions. I know this is a very broad topic, and thank you, Dr. Pavel, but there is a lot that I guess that needs to be covered if you have to answer all the questions. But yeah, if anyone has any burning question, we'll give you like a few more seconds. I don't think we have any more questions at the moment. Yeah, I think we don't
Feel
have.
free to click me through the email, yeah. So
Yes.
again, there are questions for which we don't have simple answers. It's a lot of degrees of truth.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us at Mondays at Murdoch, and thank you very much, Dr. Pavel, for this amazing session. It's been very insightful for many of us, and I'm sure there are people who've loved the session. And thank you so much, and thanks everyone, and hope to see you in our next webinars. Thanks, Dr. Pavel. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.